Hi guys, welcome back to another session. So this one's also for beginners. It's going to be focusing on pelvic lumbar stabilization. That means pelvis and lumbar, which is your lower spinal stabilization. In Pilates, a lot of the movements require you to keep that area of your body very steady and stable and isolated from movement in other parts of the body. So I thought it would be a nice place to focus on a little bit for those of you who are a bit more new to Pilates because it's a big fundamental. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking about the core first, and then we'll jump into some exercises. I wanted to just touch base a little bit with the core because sometimes a lot of people think your six-pack is your core. If you've got a six-pack, you've got a strong core, and that's actually not the case. Your six-pack is actually a flexion muscle, so it just means you've got strong flexion. But you also use your core for stabilization, which that six-pack is not used for. So, well, when I say not used for, it's not your primary user. You've got a big muscle called your transverse abdominis. It wraps literally around the entire torso. When you draw your navel into your spine, you tighten that muscle like a corset around your spine. That is a big stabilizer. Then you've got your obliques, which are your side abdominals. You've got an internal and external. One sits on top of the other, and the muscle fibers just run in different directions. That is also part of your core, more predominantly used for sort of side flexion orientated work, but used for stabilization too. Then your lower back is actually part of your core. You've got lots of little muscles that run along the spine at those lower vertebrae called your multifidi. Now again, you want to be working those for stabilization purposes. So you do feel or get some back work when you're stabilizing your core quite beautifully. You don't want to stay completely out of working your lower back. We don't want to create a weakness there while we're strengthening everything else. And then you've got your beautiful pelvic floor, which a lot of people feel is still a bit taboo, but it's very important for the body as well. So those Kegel muscles for ladies, usually they know instantaneously. For men, it's a little bit more challenging to explain. So the best way to do it in the most PG way is when you are going to the bathroom and you're taking a wee and you stop yourself midstream. Those muscles are your pelvic floor muscles, and you want them to be activated when you're also drawing that navel in towards the spine. And then when you let yourself continue with your wee, releasing those muscles, you'll feel like a heavy hammock sort of between the legs. So we're going to focus a little bit on just activating those muscles. We'll get the navel drawing in towards the spine and the Kegel muscles activated while we're laying on our back, just so we can get in touch with activating this part of the body, and then we'll bring it into a functional way with some pelvic stabilization exercises. Okay, so that is enough talking from me. I hope you enjoyed your little bit of anatomy lesson. Let us get going. I want us to start laying down on our back. We're going to go through the 4 exercises that I did in my last video, and I'll show you how your pelvic stability is brought into the equation. But first, let's lay down and just get this activation going. All right, so laying flat on your back. You want to find your neutral pelvis. That's when pubic bone and hip bones are on the same plane. You can place your hands on top of your pelvis, making a triangle with your thumbs and index fingers. You can even lift your head and take a look, and this is where you're going to see. Do your fingers sit higher than your the palm of the hands? Then you know that you are tucking too much. And if you're looking and the palms are higher than the fingertips, then you're arching too much. You want to find that happy medium where if you placed a glass on top of your hands, it would stay upright and the line of the water would be parallel to the floor. Then from there, you're going to exhale deeply to lace these ribs down into the mat for me. Again, if you're straining in the neck when you draw those ribs in, please just grab a thin pillow, place it behind your head. Make sure your shoulders aren't touching the pillow. Okay, I'm a little bit tight today, so I can feel I'm pulling a little bit in the neck. So I'm going to put the pillow, and I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable in this rib connecting activity. Okay. Your feet and knees are going to be fist distance apart. So again, you can bring the feet together, toes out to a baby V, open the heels and knees to match. Now that you've got your pelvis in neutral, just feel where the pressure is on the back of the pelvis. It's a nice way to help you know if you've moved into a tuck or an arch, because that weight distribution will have shifted. You want to keep those ribs beautifully connected. We're going to take a lovely inhale. Hands can be on the belly or down to the sides of the body. Now as you exhale, draw the navel down towards the spine. Imagine you're trying to make like a bowl shape with your belly. So if we poured water onto the belly, it would sit in there. And connect that pelvic floor. Even if you need to visualize yourself going to the bathroom and stopping yourself midstream. And then as you inhale, release both of those contractions. Let the belly soften and let that pelvic floor completely let go. And let's go for a few more. So we're inhaling. Can you close your eyes to really feel it? Place the hands on the belly if you're not quite sure if you're drawing the belly down. You should feel the hands sinking towards the floor. And then tighten up that pelvic floor like you're trying to suck something up and into your body. Inhale, release. Exhale, draw down. Create the bowl in the stomach. Lifting up that pelvic floor. But the pelvis is still in neutral. No bones have moved in this entire process. Let's go one more inhale. And exhale. Beautiful. Okay, so I want you to really focus on that engagement before you start moving any part of the body for me when we're going into our pelvic stabilization. So let's warm the body up. We're going to go in for 4 pelvic curls, 4 rotations of the lower half of the body, 4 flexions of the upper half, 4 rotations of the upper half. So feet are relatively close to the sit bones. We're going to inhale. Exhale, draw the tummy in. Connect your pelvic floor. Now start tilting the pelvis so your lower back touches the mat. You activate the legs, put a little bit of pressure on the feet to deepen the imprint of the lower back into the floor. And then you start peeling the spine off the mat 1 vertebra at a time, aiming for a straight line between knees, hips, and shoulders. Eyes are running parallel to the thighs. Inhale. Exhale. Reverse the movement. Sink the chest down deeply. Softly lengthening the spine towards the heels of the feet. Eyes return to the ceiling. And release your pelvis back to neutral. So remember where the pressure was on the back of the pelvis. And let's go again. Inhale. Exhale. Draw that belly down and in. Create that bowl. Feel your pelvic floor activate. Tilt the pelvis with that abdominal activation. Then deepen the tuck by getting the legs involved. Peel the spine up and off the mat for me. If you find you're arching your back at the top, rather lower down a little bit. Retuck that tail between the legs. Reconnect the ribs in the front line. Take an inhale. Exhale, roll down. Keep 10 toes grounded on the mat as you do. And releasing back to neutral. And let's go again. Exhale, scooping, tucking. Activate that pelvic floor. Peel the spine off the mat. Feel the knees softly reaching forward and away to keep the body in a lengthened activation. Inhale. Exhale. Lowering down. Hamstrings should be activated when you're lowering down while lengthening the spine softly towards the heels of the feet. We're going to go for 1 more. Inhale. Exhale. From navel to spine, pelvic floor, rising up. So you can even get that core to activate. At this point, this is where we're stabilizing that pelvis. We inhale. Exhale to lower down. 1 vertebra at a time again. And release to neutral. Good. All right, let's go for our lower body rotation. Bring the feet and knees together. Arms out to a T position, in line with your shoulders or slightly below. Keep your ankle bones touching throughout the movement. We're going to inhale. Exhale, rotate the hips to the left. Lift your right hip to initiate the movement. Your right foot should be off the floor. You should be lengthening your right leg forward and away, keeping ribs connected and keeping the right shoulder blade on the mat. Inhale, exhale. Draw the tummy in again. Connect your pelvic floor as you come back to center. And now we're going to inhale into our next rotation. Inhale to the right. Lift the left hip up. Keep those ankle bones glued. Lengthening the leg forward and away. Left shoulder blade grounded. My ribs are still connected. I haven't elevated and arched my upper back. We're going to exhale to come to center. Pelvic floor active, navel drawing down. We're getting the core to assist on bringing everything back to center. One more each way. Inhale to rotate to your left. Rolling over. By keeping the knees in line and your ankle bones connected, you are actually still using your pelvic stability in order to keep the hips in line with each other. We haven't sunk the one hip down and let the knees slide. That's why that lifting of that hip is so important. All right, we exhale center, draw the belly in, connect the pelvic floor. Inhaling last time over to the right, lifting that left hip, lengthening through that left knee, ribs connected, shoulders grounded. Exhale, back to center, drawing in pelvic floor and navel to spine. All right, separate feet and knees, open into the baby V, open the heels and knees to match. Interlace fingers, place them behind the head. We're going back in for our chest lifts. Now this is where you're going to get that pelvic stability going quite beautifully, as we did in the beginning with just that activation. Because now we want to keep the pelvis neutral. We don't want to be tucking, we don't want to be arching, it stays in place. We're going to inhale. Elbows in the corners of your vision. Exhale, we nod and lift the head. And then from there as a single unit, we lift the body up one vertebra at a time by pulling the ribs down to the hips. Take a look at your pelvis in this position. Is the pubic bone higher than the hips? If it is, drop your tailbone. Gentle arch of the lower back until you have that flat surface in front with the pubic bone and hip bones. Inhale. Exhale to lower back down. Keep those ribs connected. Let's go. Inhale. Exhale, we nod chin, lifting the head. Exhale to continue to rise up. Connect the ribs in the front line. Feel them coming together. You exhale completely. Inhale. Exhale to lower back down for me. We just want to get a little bit of activation going before we isolate our movements completely. And exhale, we nod chin to chest, we're rising up. Eyes are to the thighs. Inhale. Exhale down, keep the head resting in the hands. You can lengthen out the back of the neck. We're going to hold up on the next one. We're going to get our rotation going. And that's where we're also going to focus now on keeping the stability, not only on a forwards and backwards motion, but also on a rocking from side to side motion. We want to keep the pelvis staying in this position while we rotate the upper body. So let's go. Inhale. Exhale. Nod chin to chest. Rise up. Lace those ribs. Inhale. Hold. Put a little bit of pressure in your right foot to ground your right hip. Exhale. Rotate your rib cage to the left. Keep your chin in line with the middle of the chest and roll onto that left shoulder blade. You can still keep an eye on your pelvis. Make sure that the hip hasn't rocked. Look at the knees. If the knees are in different position to each other, then the pelvis has moved. We inhale center. Take a look at those knees. Are they still gapped the same? Exhale over to the right onto that right shoulder blade. A little bit of pressure into the left foot, grounding the left hip. And inhaling, we're coming back to center. Exhale last time to the left. And inhale, center, the head is still resting in the hands. Use that exhale to keep the body elevated. And we exhale over to the right side for me. Left hip grounded, pelvis still neutral. And inhale, center. Exhale to lower all the way back down. Just lengthen arms, lengthen legs, just to arch it out a little bit for me. All right, so we're going to move on to pure pelvic stabilization while we isolate the movements in the hip. It's called hip disassociation. We're trying to disassociate the hip from the pelvis, and it needs to move separate. So we're going to come back to our fist distance, gap with the feet relatively close to fingers, finding that neutral pelvis again for me, and exhale to connect the ribs. You want to feel your last rib touching the mat. When the ribs are connected and the pelvis is neutral, we actually have the spine in what should be its neutral position. And so we want to build the structure around that position so we can improve our posture. So we're going to start off with just a basic leg movement. This again is going to challenge that little left and right tilting in the hips. So we're going to start by lifting left leg. Again, put a little bit of pressure in the right foot to help ground the right hip. You're going to take an inhale. Arms can be on the tummy or down to the sides of the body. Exhale to draw that navel in again. Feel that pelvic floor activate. Once you have a deep activation, then lift that left leg up to tabletop. Tabletop is 90 degrees bent at the hip, 90 degrees bent at the knee. And this is where you got to double check. You can lift up and just make sure that right hip isn't slightly elevated. Anchor it down into the mat. We're going to then inhale. Hinge from the hip as you tap your toe on the floor. And exhale to lift that leg back up. Now my knee is staying 90 degrees. Inhale, you move just from that hip joint. Your toe is going to land further forward on the mat than the other leg. And exhale to lift it back up. Let's go 2 more on this left leg for me. The inhale on the lower is going to be a bit more challenging because it can make it a bit more difficult to connect the tummy. But we want that exhale on that lift up because that's when you're lifting that heavy load back in. Last one, inhaling. We're lowering. You're still drawing the belly down. You are still pulling that pelvic floor up. And you deepen that activation as you exhale to lift back up. Let's inhale to lower the left leg back onto the mat in line with your other foot. And now we're going to exhale to lift that right leg up to tabletop. Okay, we've got a little bit of pressure in that left leg. We've got a little bit of pressure in the left foot to ground that left hip. Okay, if you feel you moved, come down again. Inhale, deep exhale. Connect navel, connect pelvic floor. Pressure in the right foot, lift that left leg up. Look up, take a quick look-see. Sorry, I've swapped my legs around. Ha! Sorry. Exhale, engage. Lift your right leg to tabletop. I looked and I was like, this looks very familiar. Something's not right. So sorry if I confused you. You got a bit of pressure in the left foot to keep that left hip grounded. You are still in neutral. Okay. 90 degrees at the hip and the knee. Inhale to tap your toe. Exhale, connect to rise up again for me. And inhale, lowering. Navel to spine, pelvic floor connecting to stabilize as we lift that right leg up. Let's go 2 more. Inhale, your toe is going to land further forward than your left foot. And exhale to rise. The only thing moving is that hip joint. Inhale for the last time to tap down. Exhale, connect pelvic stability to rise back up. So now we're going to make the load heavier and we're going to swap the legs at the same time. You're going to need to connect more so that when you lift your heavy load, the hip flexors don't take over and we rock those hips forward. Okay, so there should be no movement in your torso whatsoever. We're going to inhale, exhale, deeply connect navel, pelvic floor, and then swap legs. I still feel this heavy work when you connect effectively. Inhale, exhale, navel to spine, pelvic floor, connect, and then move. I find people often want to move the moment they start inhaling. But if you don't have this connection effectively engaged, then there's a bigger chance of those hips moving. So take that time when you are initially getting the feeling to actually connect before moving. Don't rush. There's no reason to rush. All right, we're going to inhale. Exhale, we connect. Navel to spine, pelvic floor. Keep those ribs connected. Let's go one more each way. Inhale. Exhale, connect. You can hear my shaking in my voice. And let's go last one. Inhale. Exhale, connect. Lower the entire right foot on the floor. Lower that left leg back down onto the mat. Just rock from side to side. You've done a lot of holding on and engaging. Come. All right, so I'm going to take us through one more exercise just to challenge the pelvis a little bit differently. That was a very loaded forwards and backwards. Now I want us to move into a left and right stabilization. I'm going to change my position just so that you can get a better visual of what I'm looking for. Okay, so it's called knee drops. We're going to simply drop a knee to the side and lift it up, but it's not that simple. We want to make sure the opposing hip stays grounded and the opposing knee stays elevated and doesn't drop to counterbalance. So we're going to start by moving the right leg out to the side. We're going to inhale, exhale, connect navel, connect pelvic floor. Let that right leg slowly drop out to the side. But now keep that left leg straight up. It's going to want to dip out to help keep that hip grounded. You only open the right leg as much as you can, keeping that left hip grounded, keeping that left leg straight up. You want to put a little bit of pressure into the left foot to help keep that left hip grounded. You need to think of letting go of the muscles in that right hip. When we stay too tight, everything wants to be pulled with it. Once you found your range, you inhale, exhale, reconnect, and lift that leg up. Now we're going to swap sides. Inhale, exhale, left leg dropping out. A little bit of pressure in the right leg to keep that right hip grounded. My right leg wants to dip out to the side to counterbalance on the side, so I've found a little bit more of an weakness, for a lack of a better word, doing this side. Releasing that left hip. Inhale, exhale, connect to rise up. You can place the hands sort of next to the glutes on each side. One hand will be squished, just to feel if there's any lift. So we're going to inhale, exhale, right leg drops out. Connect pelvic floor, navel to spine. Make sure the pressure on the left hand stays the same if your hands are underneath your pelvis. And that left knee is staying upright. Soften into your right knee. Inhale, exhale, draw tummy and lift up, pelvic floor connecting. And last one, we're going to inhale, exhale, left knee coming out, letting go in that left hip joint, making sure that there's no change on the right hand in terms of pressure. Keep that right knee elevated, straight and perpendicular to the floor. Inhale if you don't know perpendicular, because I didn't. It means that it's like sort of straight down to the floor. You've got a 90-degree angle on each side. Inhale and exhale, lifting everything back up. You're then going to hug the knees into the chest and gently rock from side to side for me, just to release any residual tension, because it was a lot of stabilization through your pelvis and lower back area. So this just helps to release that lower back a little bit. And then once you're feeling satisfied, release, roll onto your side to come back up. And that is our session on pelvic lumbar stabilization. So it was a bit slow. We went into a lot of detail, but it's a very important aspect to be effective in. So even if you need to redo this video and practice that before you take on a different kind of video, a longer video, a more complicated video, please do. You'll definitely benefit greatly in your Pilates practice going forward. So thank you so much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.